Hello and welcome to the beautiful Bailey Center Auditorium on the grounds of Wallace State College in Hanceville. Thank you to our gracious hosts, Wallace State College and Dr. Vicki Karlowicz. The 2025 Tribune Debate Series and Question and Answer Forums continues today with municipal elections, but we start with District 11 special election scheduled for this Tuesday. These events are designed to give the public more unfiltered answers without the questions ahead of time, direct comparisons, and meaningful conversation. Today, we will focus on House Representative District 11 Forum, along with Coleman City Council's Place 1, Place 3, Place 4, and Place 5. We would like to go ahead and welcome Alex Braswell to our question and answer forum today. We thank you for coming out. Candidate Heath Albright had a conflicting event and was unable to attend. The Tribune works diligently to reach every candidate, but if a candidate declines to respond to emails or calls, there's only so much we can do. The invitation stands, the forum is open. If a candidate does not attend, an empty chair will sit beside those who do. This has been done at all debates in the past and this year. With that being said, we'll get on with the rules. No electronic devices on or permitted during the forum or debates. This will be a question and answer forum since you do not have an opposing candidate here. Your opening statement will be 60 seconds and may be a prepared statement. You will have 3 minutes to answer each question instead of 2. Your closing statement will be 2 minutes instead of 90 seconds. The only rebuttals you'll have, I may have a few questions. And facts only, no accusations, and voters deserve more than slogans. So, Mr. Braswell, if you would, if you'd like to give your opening statement.
Sure. So my name is Alex Braswell, and I'm the Democratic nominee for Alabama House District 11. I'm the first female nominee in history for this position. I'm a sign language interpreter by trade and the proud wife to my husband, Jeffrey. We've had an excellent campaign. We've had a lot of support on the way. We've built a great family for the Democratic Party of Coleman, Alabama. I am endorsed by Representative James Fields, Senator Zeb Little, and U.S. Senator Doug Jones. I can't help but point out the empty chair sitting next to me because this is what I see when I see Republican representation in my county, an empty chair, just like Bob Adderholt. So I'm here to answer any questions anyone has, and I want to shed some light on the campaign that has worked so hard to make a difference here in Coleman County.
All right, thank you for your opening statement, and we'll get right into the questions. We'll start with local priorities. What do you see as the single most pressing issue facing District 11 right now, and what would you do in Montgomery to address it?
I feel like in Coleman County right now, road safety is one of our biggest concerns. Even just my drive here was filled with potholes, single lane tunnels that are known for taking the roofs off of box trucks. We've got to have more tax allocation and funding set forward to our Department of Transportation here, as well as we need to have more economic development here, but in a smart, smooth, and operative way that does not pose a harm to our community. So in Montgomery, I would advocate for more funding being properly allocated to the Department of Transportation to ensure we have a safe community and to bring down the number of fatalities we have on Coleman County roads every year.
Thank you for that answer, and I have just one quick follow-up on that. In the past, ALDOT has made some decisions which have gone against majority of Coleman County wishes. The most recently being the dividers going down to 78. Would you want those removed? And if so, what would you do to get those removed?
The dividers on 278?
278 going...
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Look, the Department of Transportation has engineers that know better than me when it comes to road safety. I would listen to their advice. I would listen to the reasoning as to why they placed them there. If the choice was personally in my hands, no, I wouldn't take them down. But if it was approved by engineers and road safety specialists that they could come down and not pose a threat, then yes, I would advocate to take them down.
Thank you so much for that response. And we'll move straight on to economic growth. Coleman County and surrounding areas are growing quickly. What specific industries or business would you work to recruit, and what guardrails would you set to make sure growth doesn't hurt long-time residents?
I feel here, because we are such a large agricultural area, this could be a booming location for hemp farming specifically. There are 4 hemp farmers in Blount County that are already prepared to grow hemp, to extract hemp, but with HB 445, that really, gosh, that cut off our community, put a damper in our community development. As far as safeguards go in place, I know that with hemp and with THC-derived, or with hemp-derived cannabinoids, that we do need to have monitors in place, and I picture a monitor such as meth check that's used to curb back Sudafed usage across the state of Alabama. That same type of program can be applied to age-restricted stores here to make sure there's no over-purchasing, over-consumption, to ensure there's no resale to kids. Also ensuring keeping a reasonable property tax for businesses that want to move here, and ensuring we have the space to accommodate them without furthering our issues with road safety here, and thinking thoroughly about how we can offer jobs here, may it be in manufacturing, may it be in medical development, research development, that they have the resources that are needed here, they have the facilities that are needed here, and that the contracts we make with those companies want to stay here long term.
Thank you for your response. And you mentioned hemp, specifically in SB 455, or correct, 445. And I know that is age restricted, and I know it removes a lot out of gas stations. For those who are saying we get our medicine, let us have our medicine, but it's coming from a gas station that has a variety, let's say 50, 60 different types. Do you believe that all those can actually be tested, or do you think age restricted is the proper way to go? So
in HB 445, the bill itself, I read it front to back, top to bottom, and it specifies in the bill that a product that is allowed to be sold must be verified and have an assay, which is a concentration percentage, through a non-biased laboratory. And I have no idea what a non-biased laboratory is, so we would need to take that vague language, first things first, out of the bill. I know that hemp is a no man's land, and it's the wild, wild west right now. I understand restrictions need to be in place. I understand proper safety needs to be in place. But this is where more development across the state of Alabama can help us in this industry, because it's a win-win-win. Hemp helps decrease the opiate epidemic. It helps to decrease alcohol usage. It helps to decrease nicotine usage. And those safety mechanisms to put in place to test those products are already there. They're already there, but unless the FDA gets involved here and starts assigning national drug codes to all these products, we are going to be stuck in no man's land unless we have an advocate in Montgomery to push forward for, we need the agricultural development here, we need the safety precautions here, we need the monitoring here. And I agree with calculating an assay on all products, testing for heavy metals or any additional additives, but I do think we need to remove the vague language from SB 445 stating that the laboratory must be non-biased. Like I said, I don't know how a laboratory can hold a bias. It's unnecessary wording.
Thank you so much for that response. I know that's a big topic amongst a lot of people here, especially since we have one of the first legal hemp farms that started up here. We'll move on to education. With teacher shortages across Alabama, what policies would you support to recruit and keep strong teachers in District 11 schools?
So District 11 specifically has 2 schools on our list that are considered 2 of the hardest to staff areas in the state of Alabama, one being Parkside Elementary School, one being Susan Moore. And in a dream world, which I would love, a bill that I would propose is a year-round salary, not one that's opt-in or opt-out. Teachers would constantly have a year-round salary based at a minimum of $60,000 a year, that all classroom funding will be dispersed on August the 1st instead of October the 1st, and that if possible, I'd like to make teachers tax exempt. They have provided an invaluable resource to this community. They have No one has gotten where they have gotten without having an excellent teacher standing directly behind them. And I feel like the state of Alabama should repay that by paying them well, by staffing our schools well, by paying our aides well, our specials well, like SLPs, interpreters, counselors, especially audiologists, speech therapists. They all need to be properly accounted for, properly staffed, properly supported, and all this fighting that school boards do about following the IDEA and the ADEA, and the ADA, in Section 504 needs to go away. This needs to be an understood notion. Federal law must be followed when it comes to protecting our students in schools, and it is our job to ensure that teachers have what they need. Teachers should never have to work 2 jobs. That's just something that's unimaginable to me. So, if I could set forth a bill for negotiation that sets a minimum teacher salary of $60,000 a year, proper disbursement of education funding where they can actually benefit off of it at the first of the year instead of a quarter of the way through the year, and maintaining a tax exempt status for teachers, I feel like would be a great way to bring more teachers into our schools.
And to follow that up, first, how would you go about funding the increases? And second, what would be the limit on tax exemptions? Is it only for things that they are purchasing for school, or is it all goods and everything?
I think their salaries should be tax exempt. I think anyone that serves in a school system, their salaries should be tax exempt. As far as where the funding allocation is going to come from, I feel like this is an old record that's been played and played and played. Lord Almighty, just pass a lottery bill. A standalone lottery bill, 50% of funding goes to education, 50% of funding goes to road safety. Ensure there's no corruption in the bill, ensure no one privately benefits from the bill, and rebuild that funding to pour into our education system. When you read our tax summary here and our budget here for the state of Alabama, the things that the state of Alabama pours money into has never made much sense to me. And if we put, let's say, a tax exempt status max of $5,000 a year on teachers, overall, in theory, that should not affect Alabama to the point of absolute destruction, because there are other means of funding that can be reallocated, and there are also grants galore from the federal government to ensure that especially special needs services are properly provided for and have the money that they need.
Thank you so much for that response. And we will keep moving on to infrastructure. Roads, bridges, and internet services are critical for growth. What is one infrastructure project in District 11 you believe should receive priority state funding?
I'm actually going to compliment my predecessor, Randall Shedd, in this regard. Randall did an excellent job with broadband expansion, and that's something that I would like to continue, especially now with charter schools and virtual schools playing a larger part in our education system, making sure that those students that do want to participate in virtual school, those students that need to participate in virtual school because of whatever reason, needing to be home with family or disability, that broadband isn't an issue, especially out in the northern parts of Blount County. Now, the highest priority still is obviously road safety. I'm still constantly amazed by the amount of fatalities we have here in the county because the roads seem so fairly straightforward, but they're in terrible condition. So I would want to work with the DOT in both Coleman and Blount County, definitely have a sit-down meeting and have them point blank tell me what it is I can do, and immediately press a bill to the floor stating that this is what my community needs in order to keep itself safer.
So if you were given a list of roads by constituents, would you actually go out and look at the areas?
Yeah, and I mean, I can name like 3 off the top of my head. So County Road 783 specifically comes to mind, 747 specifically comes to mind, 278 specifically comes to mind. And especially you get out into Blount County, there aren't really roads at all. In some areas, they're just well driven over grass roads. So, or have years long packed gravel on top of them. So yes, I would love for any constituent that's having a specific problem on a specific road, I mean, take a picture, email me. If I need to come out and look at it and advocate, then that's exactly what I will do.
Thank you so much for that answer. and we will keep moving on to healthcare access. Many rural areas still struggle with limited healthcare services. What steps would you support to improve healthcare access for families in this district?
One would be to address Medicaid expansion in the State House. I know that there's 600,000 persons across the state of Alabama that don't qualify by today's means of qualification through Medicaid, but are definitely entitled to it. Children without insurance because though their parents have jobs, parents can't afford to pay. In making sure Medicaid expanded to the children who need it, despite income limits, and then having our income limits adjusted for inflation. Right now, the income maximum for Alabama Medicaid is $15,000 a year for a family of two, which makes absolutely no sense. That is so low. That income max needs to be readjusted for realistic poverty levels here in the state. And I'm also a firm believer of Alabama legislation not being a nanny to the community. When I worked in pharmacy, Alabama Medicaid was by far one of the most difficult insurance companies to bill prescriptions through because of their ridiculous policies, requiring brand name drugs when they weren't necessary, not covering certain drugs, even as far as OTC medications that were definitely needed for a child that had like a 103 fever, and constant prior authorizations for these medications that these children obviously needed. Those are regulations that I would sit down, talk to medical professionals, talk to pharmacists, and have reduced. It's not our job to pick and choose what medication a child needs. That's a physician's job and should stay a physician's job, and pull back on the regulations like on St. Vincent's Blunt that are causing them to nearly lose their rural status because of the percentage of Medicare or Medicaid patients that they take. No one should be turned away for medical care ever because of the kind of insurance they have.
Thank you so much for that response. I know that's a difficult topic for a lot of people. We're going to move right on to taxpayer accountability. How will you ensure that tax dollars from District 11 are spent responsibly and return fair value to this community?
To me, that's fairly simple, and this is what excellent teams of supportive people around you are for. There's not a document too large that I will not sit down and read to ensure that funding is being properly allocated across the state, and that will include going to boards of education, going to individual schools, going to DOTs and counties, and ensuring that they're receiving the funding that they need. And if not, returning back to the Alabama State House and approaching our Senator Garland Gudger as to how he and I can collaborate to ensure that the community is getting what they need.
Thank you so much. That was direct and to the point. So we'll just keep on moving to state versus local power. How do you balance representing the values of local voters with the broader pressure of Montgomery politics?
Ignore Montgomery? I mean, people come to me all the time with facts and matters that I know affect the entire state, and they often forget that I'm just here to represent District 11. I'll advocate, obviously, and I will help any representative, obviously, no matter their political party, to advocate for what they need for their community as well. But as for me personally, my eyes will always be on District 11. Any bill that's affecting our community, had I been in the legislature this past congressional session, I would have signed against HB 445, unlike Garland Gudger. I would have signed against SB 322, unlike Garland Gudger. I would have signed against SB 110, unlike Garland Gudger. I would make sure that these bills placed forward benefit my community and benefit the community of all of the representatives that surround me, and listen to every opinion that comes in, but especially the opinions of my community, and make sure this is what they need, balance of how they'll be affected, and handing over more power to our Chamber of Commerce as well as our county commissions to make sure their voices are being heard and their needs are being met.
Thank you. And I know that many have heard in the past where freshman representatives go down to Montgomery and are called into a meeting and basically told, you're going to have to vote a few ways that you're not going to want to vote in order to ensure that you're getting what you need for your district. If that is the case, would you stay the hard line, or would you kind of deviate as long as it did not affect the voters in your district in a negative way?
Well, this is where communicating with your district matters. While I'm there as a representative and to represent our community, I'm also a conduit. And that's exactly what I do as an interpreter. I've interpreted as an ASL interpreter plenty of things I did not feel comfortable saying with my own mouth, but it wasn't my message. It was the deaf consumer's message that I was simply passing on. So, I mean, I would love for somebody to look me in the face and say, well, you're gonna have to vote differently. No, I will go to my community, I will listen to my community, I will take fair opinions from my community, make an educated decision on that based on fact, reason, and community voices, not based on my own opinion.
Thank you for that response. And we will keep going on to public safety. What role should the state play in supporting local law enforcement and first responders in District 11?
Ensuring that they have the funding that they need, ensuring that we have proper incentives for to have the proper task force, but Lord, to also ensure that we have the proper training. After the disaster that was the Hanceville Police Department, and after some recent legislation as to partial immunity with the Alabama State Police, we need to set forth legislation where police are not required to wear masks unless it is medically required due to an environmental issue or illness. And we also need to push forward on, I cannot stress this enough, proper training, proper awareness, especially when pulling over persons with disabilities. I have seen multiple videos across the state of Alabama, persons who can't talk, can't hear, maybe aware and allowed to drive but still have a mild visually impairment, or if they're autistic, if they're combative upon approach because of a mental health disorder. Those need to be trained, those need to be focused, and we need to bring in more attention to the fact that houses and persons can be registered through the 911 system, as well as notes added to their driver's license that state if there's a medical issue with this person that you are pulling over, and having the proper training for our police officers to approach that situation properly, to de-escalate that situation properly, and as is the case in Blount County, not just handcuffing somebody that's going through a mental health crisis and taking them to their mental health officer because they don't have a county mental health center. But also, partial immunity, in my opinion, shouldn't be an option for police officers. Police officers are not meant to be bullies or presidents in our community. They're meant to protect and serve our community, and I wish them to do just that with impartiality.
Thank you so much for your response on that question. And we will keep going into transparency and influence. Voters often worry about lobbyist and PAC influence in Montgomery. How will you remain transparent and accountable in your decision making?
Again, communicating with my community. I mean, I harp on the word communication a lot, but it's truly what I do in my career. I talk for a living, I communicate for a living. As far as lobbying goes, I'm not a fan of lobbying whatsoever. And that's a point that I have made on this campaign. I have not received support from PACs or businesses or corporations, unlike my opponent. I don't think it's a good path to follow, because regardless of if the funding was taken in good faith, that PAC or that corporation or that lobbyist still has a power over you to influence you to vote in a certain way. I don't want fame, I don't want money, I don't want to get rich or have an exorbitant amount of campaign funding based on lobbyist and PAC funding that I'm given. I want to earn the donations that are given to me by those that believe in me, and keep my vision focused on what my community needs without financial compensation.
So if you were elected and then you had to run for re-election, because this is a short term, and you ended up meeting several people that are in PACs, would you deny their funding if they offered?
It would depend on the PAC. There's a progressive women's PAC that is very supportive of our community, as well as the Democratic Victory Fund that's held by our House Minority Leader, Anthony Daniels. I would make sure that their beliefs align with mine, but the only exception to my rule with funding that I would gladly take, because I will always advocate for, is unions. I will always accept union funding.
Thank you so much for that response. And we have reached our final question for this question and answer forum, and constituent access. How will you make sure voters in District 11 can reach you and have their voices heard once you are in office?
I've already got an excellent team around me that help me communicate with my community as it is. Positions I will offer for them to continue with when I'm elected. And I will take full advantage of the Alabama Democratic Chairs Association and make sure that everyone across the state of Alabama has proper access to the Democratic Chairs Association website with their email addresses. They can feel free to email Ricky Browning here, the Coleman County Democratic Chair. They can email Riley McDermott, the Blount County Democratic Chair. And of course, they can email me and text me and leave me a message. And I'll leave open office hours to ensure that I can take time to sit down and speak with my community and make sure I have an honest fear of not being able to fully communicate with my entire community, because I know what it's like to scream into a void, trying to gain access and accessibility for a community, and that is not a path that I'm going to follow.
So if elected, and you have a bill that is presented, and you're going to vote on it within 1 week. Session lasts from Monday until Thursday. They typically let out on Friday. Sometimes they actually work through Friday. So would you have any issues coming and having a city hall or town hall forum when such a big vote comes up?
Doug Jones would kill me if I didn't. But also, town halls are one of the most fun things to do. Having meet and greets, meeting at, even just simple things, meeting at a restaurant, just sitting down, forming a common dialogue. But as our current representation has taught us, especially Robert Adderholt, who 5, 6, 7 town halls through the month of April that counties held all over, that he never showed up to, and I do not intend to follow in that path. I will absolutely continue with town halls, meet and greets, local county Democratic Party meetings, and GOP party meetings, should they feel inclined to invite me. And I will listen to every voice, no matter how kind or harsh, and just sit down, form a common dialogue. It doesn't always have to be negative or a debate. We can sit down and talk about anything.
Thank you so much for coming out and answering our questions, Ms. Braswell. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come out this morning and speak to everyone. We'll go to your closing statement now. You have 2 minutes.
So I know our election is fast approaching, and there's a message that I want to properly represent, is that there was never a chance on, no matter how the polls turn on Tuesday, for failure in this campaign, because no matter what, we won. For the first time in nearly 15 years, Coleman County in District 11 had the opportunity to vote for a Democrat. They have the opportunity to vote for a woman to stand up and represent their community. That in itself was a victory. Blount County reforming their Democratic Party, Coleman County increasing their momentum in our Democratic Party was a victory in itself. Doug Jones coming here and co-hosting a town hall with me and opening the floor to our community and taking some of the most educated and well thought out questions I have ever received from my community was a victory. This campaign, there is no loss, no matter how the polls go. We have done a great job. We've brought the representation that Coleman County needs. But also, we need to accustom ourselves to every election being contested, because my job from henceforth, may it be myself running again or someone else running again, is to train new candidates, to encourage new candidates, to be a shoulder to lean on for new candidates, and to make sure that the drama and the melee of it all that goes on behind the scenes is quieted, and that there's a straightforward route for others in their community to step forward and contest these long, non-contested elections. So As our campaign goes, this is a new wave across the state of Alabama. Going to Montgomery will ensure that you have someone in the House of Representatives that is 100% throwing their soul behind advocating for the rights of the disabled, that is throwing their soul behind making sure our education system has enough funding and that it is properly allocated. I cannot stress that enough. That our agricultural system has exactly what they need to continue on their businesses, and that will not be based on my opinions, that will be based on me speaking to every business that needs help, that is struggling, and also to push forth the ideas that we've constantly been ignoring, to increase minimum wage, to increase the income limits on Medicaid and food stamps. So on Tuesday, when you go to the polls, I want you to think about the representation that you want in your district. Do you want the representation that just stuck an R at the end of their name and said, okay, let's just roll right on through? Or do you want the representation that stood up as a Democrat, knowing the odds in this election and fought as hard as we have anyway? We have raised far more funding than I could ever imagine. We've put every cent of that to good use, and every single cent of that money was given to me by people that believe in me, and I'm the most proud of that. So on August the 26th, on Tuesday, I encourage every soul to go to the poll and help me in my campaign make history.
Thank you so much for your remarks, and thank you again for showing up and coming out today. I know getting on stage and answering questions are not always the funnest thing to do on a Saturday morning, but we do appreciate you coming out. We appreciate everyone in the audience and everyone who watched at home and will watch later. We want to again extend our thank you to Wallace State College and Vicki Karlowicz for allowing us to be here and being a gracious host. And with that, this forum ends, and we will be back at 2 p.m. with Place 1 of Coleman City Council, and we have 4 full debates scheduled starting at 2 p.m. Again, thank you, Ms. Braswell, for showing up, and that will do it for today. Thank you.